To Live with Littledata, here for another Friday. And this week, I'm going to recap a topic we looked at a couple of weeks ago, which is reporting identity and attribution in Google Analytics 4. So I have an apology to make. A couple of weeks ago, I was pushing the idea that the best way you can attribute users across sessions is using what Google calls blended reporting identity. And what I found out since then is that there's some real flaws with the way that blended works, and I don't recommend that anymore. So let me explain, first of all, what are those problems with the reporting identity in Google Analytics. So let me just recap what we're talking about here. So this is Google Analytics. This is Littledata's own merchandise store. And we're going to be honing in on particularly on this acquisition report and user acquisition. There's a reason we put user acquisition. Traffic acquisition is just looking at this current session, and therefore it's not very useful in terms of understanding what campaigns actually brought the users there in the first place. So we want to try and use user acquisition, which is basically what is the first default channel group that brought the user there. And if we can get that right, then we can, use the data-driven attribution and other forms of marketing attribution modeling. Right. So, as I said, in our store, we're not particularly exciting. We can go back just for this last calendar year because we don't really spend a lot on marketing. This isn't the best place to see it. But anyway, we can see that obviously we have got sales linked to the channels here. So some social, some search, some paid search. Now, so when we talk about user acquisition, how does Google Analytics know that the user is the same person who came a different session? Well, there's a few different ways it can know that, and you'll see this under admin and reporting identity. So let's just look at this. Is the default for the property, which is blended. So it's trying to use 4 different ways to associate events with users. The first is user ID. Now, in an e-commerce store, this is rare that you will have a user ID. Your users generally aren't logged in. This will only happen basically when they're on the checkout and they actually have created their account or logged in. And so, yes, Littledata does send user ID, but it's rarely useful. The second thing is Google Signals. Now, this is, I think, that where it's going wrong, but we'll come back to that. This is basically for users who've consented, sharing the information. Effectively, think of it as Google Graph. So knowing that a user logged in on their Android device over here is the same user as logged in Gmail on their laptop. So that Google Signals should be helping stitch together sessions and track the whole customer journey, but we'll see there's a problem. The third method is device ID. That is basically the actual cookie ID that's set in the browser for that particular app or website they're visiting. And then finally, but irrelevant really for this conversation, is model data. This is where you've got consent mode enabled, and you're kind of enabling Google to effectively guess who the user is. So let's just focus on, as I said, user ID, Google Signals, device ID. Now, right, so the one that is used the most of the time, and frankly in Universal Analytics was really the only way to identify users, was device ID. Now, bizarrely, Google decided to hide, if you click this little gray show all button here, that you can just have it device-based. Now, your reports may only reflect a subset of your users, but actually that's, in our experience, not true either. So what I'm going to tell you today is that switching from blended to device-based is going to improve your marketing attribution. And let me explain how that's going to work. So that sounds counterintuitive. As I said, that the idea of Google Signals and the user ID is it should enable you to link together more accurately users on different cross device, people who browsed on their mobile and then bought on their desktop. It should enable you to just link together users on the same device, people who open up a new browser with all their cookies cleared and appear in Google Analytics as a different device ID, but it doesn't seem to be working. So let me show you this. So I'm not going to show it to you on our own merchandise store because, as I said, there really isn't enough data on there. But I want to show it to you on 3 brand stores that we work with. Now they've all got a different mix of marketing, and they've got a different mix of locations and devices. So I just want to say this is something consistently happening across all the brands we work with, or all the brands we've looked at in detail. Right, so this is how the report looks if it's blended. And by the way, when you change that setting in the admin settings, the reports will automatically recalculate. So you can go in and check back and forth today to see how it changes. So with the blended setting, around 54% of their revenue, they did around $330,000 over the last month, and around over 50% of that is attributed to direct. Now, direct basically means we don't know where they came from, so it's not a very useful channel group as far as we're concerned. And effectively, if you could go back and link together the user journey more fully, direct should reduce as a share of the channels, because you should be able to link to a session which was coming from an identified channel, whether it's from an ad click or a Google search or an SMS click or whatever. Now, the other weird thing about this account is they haven't even set up Google Signals. So there's not, in the blended view, this is theoretically only using user ID and device ID. But as I said, there seems to be an issue, because if we turn it off and we just use device ID, we're actually getting a big drop in the direct channel. Now let's look at that side by side so we can just look at what changed there. So we're blended, obviously, in both cases, direct is their biggest channel, so that's not great. But the portion attributed to direct really drops a lot when we do device ID. So as I said, it goes down, and all of the other channels benefit. Some of them more than others. So in this case, email jumps up from being their 4th channel, being their 2nd, nearly doubling. Paid search bumps up by about 50%. So that's pretty important if you're spending on paid and suddenly you're getting 50% more revenue. You're confident that I would say that's important to know. Paid social, smaller bump but still up. SMS, up about 50%. Organic search, up nearly double. Paid shopping, up a little bit less. Cross network, which is basically when Google's syndicating the ads across other websites, used to be just part of paid search channel in Universal Analytics. So that's nearly doubled. Sorry, that's halved. Interestingly, it's the only other one that's gone down. Organic social, a little bit up, and referral, well, very much up because it doesn't even appear in the top 10 in the previous one. So I would say device ID here looks to be better attribution. We're getting more insight into where the sales are coming from, and that happens across the other 2 accounts. So this second one is less dramatic. This is a British brand, selling by subscription. They've got less direct traffic anyway, which probably explains why it's not so different. So for them, direct, even on a blended, is number 4 on the list. And if we just look at it, sorry, I haven't done the side by side for this, but direct basically goes down from £18,000 to £16,000, a little bit down. Paid social goes down a bit. The winners in device ID are organic search, and a little bit of email, but it's not dramatic. They only had around about 15% of their traffic attributed to direct anyway, and it goes down to about 12%. So still better with device ID, but not dramatic. And then the third one is dramatic. So this is a brand doing an even bigger volume, nearly $3 million a month of sales. And look at this if we compare it side by side. So direct drops from like 73% of their traffic attribution down to 56%. Organic search bumps up hugely, nearly up by about 80%. Paid social jumps, paid search jumps, email nearly doubles, referral jumps, SMS goes up by tenfold from only $11,000 we think attributed to SMS. They're up to nearly 125,000. So it really is quite a dramatic difference for just this one setting in the back end. And that's why, as I said, I apologize before for recommending blended as the best setting, and we'll be updating our help guides to understand that this is now the difference. Now, note something else important is happening with the brand. The actual total revenue at the top has gone up, only by a small amount, but significant. And that was, again, not a different time range, not a different filter. It's just by changing that setting, and the difference is thresholding. So the other downside about using a blended view is that Google, in trying to protect the anonymity of those users with Google signals, is basically limiting some of the reports, and this bleeds through into other kinds of reports. So looking at this account, again, for exactly the same date range, when we have the one report at the top without the blended attribution, you see this little tick box in the top right, and that means the no thresholding, and the actual conversion rate we're seeing has changed. And then the reason it's changed is actually this is based on session default channel, which isn't using the Google signals. But if we try and do it as users, then we get this little sorry, it's a bit hard to see there, but it's a little warning light to say that there's thresholds have been applied. So there's another big negativity of enabling Google signals for reporting identity. I would say there's no downside to enabling Google signals generally. That's going to help your ads attribution targeting, but I don't recommend including it in the blended reporting identity. So just to show you what I mean, just if we go back to explore. Let's just show you this a little bit. Right. So when I was talking about thresholding, how do you know if thresholding applies to you? Well, you can see it here. So I'm building an exploration for our Google Analytics store, and as I said, this is a little tick box in the top. And if I zoom in there, you can see this says tick and unsampled exploration. So this report is based on 100% of available data. Now I'm not sure I can get it because our account has reasonably little thing, but let me just check first of all what we are using the set it back to blended. Yeah, it is on blended. So I think we might be able to force it to do a exploration. So let's just try and segment it by users. You know what? I'm not going to do that because I think it's in this account of this size for our test store. I don't think we're going to be able to get the thresholding to show up easily. But for a lot of brands we've come across, anyone doing more than 10,000 or so sessions a month, yeah, this is going to be another limitation. So yeah, well, we talked to a few other analytics experts. I'm not sure why this is happening, but the general consensus seems to be that you shouldn't be using the default blended view. You should be using what was called device ID only. I see that Google's actually now renamed it to device only. And let's go back to the Google Analytics. To recap, you have to click this show all button. So you have to go under settings, the cog in here, admin, property settings, reporting identity, and then you have to click show all and then device based, and then save. And then it'll immediately update all of your historic reports to use the same reporting identity. Now it'll warn you. It'll say, hey, stop using blended because other identifiers aren't fully available. Reports mainly reflect subset of users. Ignore it. It's actually going to be more accurate. Now, I didn't know how long this is, whether this is a bug on the Google side, whether they're going to fix this. Because it doesn't seem intuitive to me that using the one identifier should be better than using 3 identifiers. But, as it stands at the moment, that's what we recommend. Now, as I said, we can still and probably should still set up Google Signals, and we would do that under the data settings here, data collection, and you'll see at the top here you have a little tick box whether you've got Google Signals on or off. If you have it off, then you can just click to have it on. It'll warn you to begin with, because what you do need to do is have a policy on your website to say that you are using this feature, Google advertising feature, and you need to be able to tell users that you're doing that with their data. And you can selectively do it by region. So if you want to turn it off in the EU or other sensitive regions, then you could do that. But the reason to set up Google Signals but not use it in the reporting is that this will collect for future use. And as I said, it definitely helps with linking to Google Ads. Okay, I think that's the main thing I wanted to cover this week. I don't know whether we have any other questions. Yeah, I think just one about yeah. Okay, yeah. So just a question about what else we should be looking at these settings. So as I said, we will. I'll be publishing a post on this soon, but just let me take you through a quick whirlwind tour of what else you might want to check here while you're set up. So Setup Assistant, again, you shouldn't need this. It's just a summary. Again, it's recommending things like turning on Google Signals, obviously collecting the website data. It does obviously recommend you link to Google Ads. So if you've got a Google Ads account, definitely something you should be doing. And what else do we recommend here? So it also recommends linking to BigQuery. We'll come on to that in a moment. We covered that last week in detail. Set up user ID. Again, we do have that set up, and it should be enabling cross-device reporting in Google Analytics, but I don't think that's working at the moment. And Littledata is already using measurement protocol, so that's all good. We've got the advanced setup done. Property settings. The things to look here are time zone and currency. So you definitely want to use the same reporting time zone as your Shopify store. So I don't recommend having a discrepancy here, because it will make it hard to compare like for like. Same with currency. Much best to have this as the same currency as your main businesses, and Google Analytics will automatically convert the currencies at the time of purchase to that currency. Property access, obviously everyone's got access. I won't bother covering that here. Data streams, again, you would have done this at the beginning. Nothing to see here. Events. Now, interestingly, you can kind of modify event names, but this is just telling you which events you've got. You can mark them as conversions. I don't recommend purchases are always conversions. If you're an e-commerce store, I don't recommend marking anything other than purchase conversions, because it will really confuse the reporting. So, for example, your Google Ads will start targeting people who've just added to cart but haven't purchased yet. So I would definitely mark only purchases, only keep the default purchase as the conversion. Conversions, we kind of just talked about. That we've got one conversion that's purchases. Keep it that way. Don't create new ones. Audiences we've covered in a previous live stream, but this is how you can share an audience, perhaps with Google Ads. Custom definitions. So there's definitely some custom dimensions that Littledata sends, and we need to create. In fact, in the latest version of Littledata software, and if you go back and install our app, we actually add these custom dimensions automatically for you now. Data collection settings we just looked at, and basically I recommend them all to be turned on. Data retention. Now this is another gotcha. Defaults are 2 months. That's definitely too short. You want to default to 14 months. You can't go more than 14 months. If you want to do more than 14 months, you have to export the data to BigQuery. But definitely recommend going more than 2 months, because very often you want to look back year on year. And definitely opt into this one, which says reset that 14 months when the user comes back. Data filters. You want to just exclude some internal traffic. You can basically create a filter by by IP address, and do it that way. And then channel groups, as I said, there is a default channel group, but as of a few months ago, you can create custom channel groups based on the default and edit them. So for whatever reason, you're not seeing the right traffic in the right buckets. For example, I had a customer the other day that was not seeing their affiliate traffic from Rakuten coming under affiliates. So we created a custom channel group to fix that. I won't cover data import now. We've talked about reporting identity. Attribution, again, I recommend data-driven. I definitely recommend crediting paid and organic, not just Google paid, especially if you're using channels outside of Google. And then conversion window, it defaults to sort of the longest possible conversion window. Again, I've said before, it slightly depends on whether you want to perhaps be more more time bound with your marketing and just say, look, I only want to consider stuff over the last month that's contributed, or whether you think you have a longer consideration purchase cycle for your products, and 90 days is better. Probably change history, just really an audit of when stuff was changed. So you can see here that I changed the reporting identity setting here, so that's good to know, and it makes us be able to trust whether that the settings have been changed or not. Data deletion request, not a biggie, and debug view, really just useful if you want to test the integration at the beginning. Okay, that is all we've got time for this week. So it's been a whirlwind tour of the settings. We'll take a deeper look at some of those. I think that's going to be an on-running theme the next couple of months of how to get up Google Analytics for better reporting. We're also going to cover in a bit of deeper dive in cookies next week. What are cookies? How are they used in Google Analytics? And that will tie in some of the stuff I've been saying today about the device ID and linking together users. So join us same time next week. Thanks for listening.